I'm going to show you a quick hack to create your own checkboxes with pure HTML and CSS, no JavaScript involved whatsoever. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my HTML5 skeleton. Okay, just type HTML if you're in Visual Studio Code and you'll see this HTML:5. Go ahead and click enter or return. Okay, like that. Alright, first I'm going to show you what a regular checkbox, I'm sure you know what a regular checkbox looks like, but I'm just going to show you how plain it looks. Okay, so I'm going to create this label element, and within that I'm going to create an input type checkbox. Okay, we don't need this name attribute for now, but this ID attribute is very important. See this for attribute and the label element, the ID, let's just call it my checkbox. It should correspond with the for attribute in the label element. Okay, so these should match. Alright, that's very important because if you create a text label, for example, let's just say my label. Alright, let's save that. Let's go ahead and refresh. Okay, see this my label? If you click on that, that checkbox should check. Okay, you should have that. So the ID should correspond to the for attribute in the label. Okay, now see how this checkbox, looks rather plain. It's like the default checkbox. So anyways, what I'm going to do, okay, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to create a style tag up in here, to make everything easier. I'd recommend, don't place your style declarations or your style rules within the HTML document itself. You want to really separate your concerns if you can do that, and create a separate, style sheet, to link up to this HTML document. But for simplicity, I'm just going to use the style tag within the head. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to call it, give it a class of checkbox content. Okay. Within that, I want to create my checkbox, so I'm going to create another div called checkbox. Alright, this is going to be an empty div for now. Then I'm going to create another div for my checkbox label. Okay, so give it a class of checkbox label, like that. Okay, and I'm going to call it my label. Okay. So when I refresh, it's going to look like this. Okay. This right here, this is just the default checkbox. It's this input type checkbox right here. Okay, that's what this is. Okay. This checkbox div I created, it exists, but nothing's showing right now. We haven't given it styles yet. Okay, and then you can see this div right here, my label. Okay, what I am going to do is I'm going to target this checkbox right here, the actual checkbox. Okay, it's an ID, so you want to use the hash, okay, for the target and ID. This is an ID selector I'm creating, so my checkbox. Okay, some curly braces. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to display it to none. Okay, so that's going to hide this checkbox. Refresh. Okay, you see it disappeared. Okay, next what I am going to do is I'm going to target my custom checkbox that I'm creating. Okay, the class of checkbox. Alright, and I'm going to give it a width of, let's say, 20 pixels. Let's go with 30 pixels, make it a little bit larger. And a height of 30 pixels. Alright, and I'm going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid. And I'm going to give it this light gray color, number CCC. Okay, and I'm going to refresh, and I should see my checkbox. You know, to make it a little bit more clear, I might give this 3 pixels. Let's see how that looks. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be the checkbox, okay, that we're going to use. Now, you'll notice the checkbox and the label are on its own line, okay? That's because they're divs, they're block level elements, okay? So what I want to do next, I want to target the container, the checkbox content, okay? The checkbox content. And I want to give it a display of flex, okay? I'm going to be using Flexbox here, alright? So refresh, okay, it should be next to each other. Now, I like the text a little bit more centered. And I also don't want it, you know, right up next to the checkbox. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the... Well, first, let me do this. So checkbox content, I want to align items center, okay? This is going to align the items center on the cross axis, okay? When you think of Flexbox, you have the main axis, cross axis. That could be another lecture, but in its own, but okay. So now it's centered, okay? And I still don't like the label right up next to the checkbox. So I'm going to target the checkbox label right here. Checkbox label. And I'm going to give it a margin left of 10 pixels. Let's do that. Let's see how that looks. Alright, good. Alright. So, what I am going to do next is I'm going to add the functionality for the checkbox, okay? But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import Font Awesome because I like to have the check icon. So I'm going to search up Font Awesome CDN. And I have no internet. Hold on, let me fix that real quick. Need to turn on my hotspot because where I'm at, I don't know the Wi-Fi password. So let me turn on the hotspot. Sorry, give me a second. Okay. And let's see, let me go up here. And it should show up. There we go. Refresh. Okay, and I'm going to grab this CDN link, okay? So, it's copied to my clipboard, apparently. That's what it says. And I'm going to come up here under title. And I'm going to add a link attribute. By the way, you know, these shortcuts I'm typing in, there's an extension called Emmet. It should already come with Visual Studio Code if you're using that. And I'm going to paste that link in there in the href, okay? And what I'm going to do for this checkbox, I'm going to use, I'm going to give it a class of fa-check. I believe that's it. Let me check. I could be Wrong. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that works. Okay, so let me just say check mark, give it another class, and I'm going to come up here, target that check mark. Let's give it a font size of 30 pixels, maybe. Let's see how that looks. There we go. Yeah, it looks. And I'm going to give it a green color too. So color green. Let's do that. There we go. Okay, that looks a little bit better. All right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to give the check button mark a display of none. Okay. Like that. Refresh, it's gone. Okay, good. So the objective is if you click on the box, okay, you want the checkbox checked, okay? And when the checkbox is checked, it's going to show this check mark within my custom checkbox, okay? So what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to target the checkbox, the actual checkbox, not the custom checkbox we made, but the actual checkbox, okay? So checkbox, and we're going to use this special pseudo class called checked, okay? Okay, so when that's checked, we want to target checkbox content, and it's going to be a an adjacent sibling. Okay, so you want to use the adjacent sibling combinator. So class checkbox content. Checkbox content. There we go. And then from there, the the checkbox, and then the check mark. Okay. All right. So when the actual checkbox, and this should actually be, I'm sorry, this should be a ID selector of my checkbox. My apologies. So when this the actual checkbox is checked, okay, we're going to target the check mark right here within the checkbox. And you know what I might do? Let me go ahead and shrink this like that, and increase this so you guys can see it a little bit better, okay? So when the actual checkbox is checked, we want to target our check mark in our custom checkbox, okay? And then we'll give it a style, a display of block, okay? So we'll go from display of none to display of blocked if the actual checkbox is checked, okay? Refresh. Let's see if this works. Let's cross my fingers, see if it works. There we go. So that's your custom checkbox right here, okay? Under the hood, the actual checkbox is being checked, okay? So when you see the check here in our custom checkbox, it's actually checked in the actual checkbox, and I could show you if I comment out this display of none for the actual checkbox. Okay, so when you check it, the actual checkbox is checked. Okay, and you can uncheck it. Check, uncheck, check, uncheck. Okay, let's go ahead and return the display of none there. Okay, refresh. All right. So yeah, here's your custom checkbox. Okay, it's a little bit of a hack. I think it looks better than the default checkboxes in the browser. Also on mobile devices too, it's easier to check. Okay, the custom checkbox is easier to check because it's larger. So yeah, tell me what you think in the comments if you like it. Again, let me go ahead and just scroll down, show you the code once again. And again, make sure this ID attribute of the actual checkbox matches up with the for attribute of the label. Okay, that's pretty important. So otherwise, have a great day.